Hi, my name is Hazel Nickel. I'm a second-year student at Lasell University. I'm studying fashion, and this semester I decided to take on the project of studying and recreating a child's corset from the early 1800s. The only information on this corset in the Lasell archives was that it was a child's corset from the early 1800s, so I wanted to see if I could date it more closely. So I did some research. The corset has metal eyelets, which were not invented until 1828. During this time period, it was pretty common for children to wear corsets, and it wasn't considered cruel or anything. Children's corsets were not laced very tightly, which is exemplified by the corset that I'm studying, which it's entirely cording. There's no stiff, the only piece of stiff boning that would have been in this corset is at the center front. And that means that if you tried to lace this corset very tightly, you'd get horizontal wrinkles in the middle, and it would be very uncomfortable. It would mess up the corset, and it would just not really work. So this was not a corset that was meant to be worn tightly. I've sewn a corded corset before, sometime in high school, just out of curiosity, because, I don't know, it was really fun to sew all the cording. It ended up looking really cool, but I did not add any boning, not even in the center back, so if I lace it really tightly, it wrinkles a lot. So yeah, this is a children's corset. This was like a trainer bra. This would have been worn by a preteen girl, and it would not have been laced very tightly. And it was made for comfort. It was more to for a young girl to get used to the idea of wearing a corset, and also because corsets, women used to wear many layers of skirts, and that could get very heavy, especially if every petticoat hangs from one waistband. That would be that would be very pinching. So wearing a corset really helped distribute that that pressure. Yeah, the corset that I studied has seen some hard use. There's a lot of stains, and there's a few tears, and several of the eyelets have actually been completely ripped out and mended. The eyelet hole's been mended to try and preserve it. Okay, this is the corset. This clearly belonged to a girl for several years as she was growing, which is really fun. You can see here. You can see here that the shoulder strap was kind of folded down over itself and sewn in place, so it was shortened. Probably pretty soon after the corset was made, because I don't know, it's very pressed flat, and it seems like it's part of the seam, it's intentional. You can kind of see the shadow there of the fold tucked under. This was probably I think this was after 1828, because it has metal eyelets, and those weren't invented until 1828. So this would have been probably around 1830 to 1835. The style of corset is a lot older than what grown women of this time would have been wearing. You can see there's a little pocket here, and this would have been there would have been a narrow piece of wood here to keep the front straight up and down. The styles from the the small waist was coming back into fashion around the 1830s, and so grown women would have been wearing corsets that could lace more tightly than this, because like I said before, cording doesn't lace very well because the cording is too floppy to stay rigid under a lot of pressure. Okay, something that I absolutely love about this corset, there's these you can kind of see the scarring. There used to be darts in either side here, and they were pretty clearly taken out after not that long, because the scarring isn't that bad. I don't know, it's still Yeah, you can see it's still kind of torn a bit at the fabric, but yeah, it's a sign that it's another sign that this was made for a growing kid, which is really fun. There's a little bit of piecing up here. This was something that people used to do back when fabric was really valuable, would be to, like, if there wasn't enough, if a piece of fabric wasn't big enough to cut out a single piece in one go, they would just like, oh yeah, you can see it here too, just that seam there. They just like patch together two pieces of fabric so it'd be big enough. The stitching on this corset is so tiny, like these teeny tiny stitches. I don't know if this, yeah, that you could probably see that. It's like, it's a chain stitch and it's just like unbelievably tight. Yeah. So I really was hoping I could recreate this by hand, but like stitching that tight, it would take like 30 minutes to do like 3 inches. Yeah, this was clearly made to last when it was originally made. To get the measurements for this piece, I used these very small insect pins. And with them, I can pin along the grain line. These are very narrow, so they won't damage the fabric. And I can follow one thread down and just add pins to mark where it is. And this will help me track how the edges of all the pieces curve. This is a much more effective method than just measuring across, because I can tell how the pieces should be positioned on the fabric it'll be cut out of. Might be hard to see, but here I have one straight line down the shoulder band. Now once I've reached the end, I can make a pin line out to the corner at a right angle, and that'll tell me where I can measure across for here. This is the line I made with pins. It's 7 3/4 inch long, and at the narrow end, I'm going down 1/4 inch because I started pinning inside of the binding, because the binding doesn't follow the same grain line as the rest of the fabric. I wanted to get as good a measurement as possible. At the wide end, the line that I pinned is 7/8 away from the edge. So I can connect these two lines, and this line here, this is a little rough. It's a straight line, and the edge of the shoulder strap is not a straight line. So I would go back in and at intervals along the band, I would pin, and it's like following the grain line, I would pin down from the line that I pinned and get that measurement, and then I would add it to here, so I could blend this in a way that follows the pattern, the original piece better. Here's the finished shoulder strap. This was a lot easier than the back and the side, which I've already done. As you can see, there's like the sides, it's a lot of straight lines between the points that I checked. It's something I'm going to blend out when I trace these for making the final patterns. Here you can see I have all of the pieces cut out. I still need to like trace over the piping channels with water-soluble pen, the kind that washes out easily. And yeah, then I can start sewing them together. So I was debating whether or not I would include this dart that was on the original piece, added after the piece was finished. And given that it was taken out so soon that there's only like minimal fabric scarring, I'm choosing not to add it.